To really understand what the economic collapse is, I think it's a good idea to know what money actually is. Well, what is money? It's something we're not taught about at school, which is rather strange, really, because I don't think there's anything quite as important as learning how to manage and deal with money. But I found there's a very good reason why it's not taught at school. Quite literally, money is a scam. It's a confidence trick. It's not what we think it is. Money is actually debt. Now, it took me a little while to figure out what that means. I'll try and make it quite clear. It's that there's only one way that money comes into existence, and that's because it's borrowed from banks. That's it. Every dollar that's out there is borrowed at some point, somewhere along the line. It's borrowed from a bank. That's borrowed by governments, companies, and individuals like you and me. So let's imagine you get a mortgage for $100,000. The bank literally creates that $100,000 out of thin air. It literally types $100,000 into your account. But you, as a borrower, you agree to pay back $300,000. So the money that isn't created, there's no movement of gold bars or no dollars get printed. It doesn't exist. But what does exist is the debt. The debt that you have to pay back. Now there's a further trick to it. That $300,000 has to come out of the existing pot of money that's out there. So all the money in circulation, you've got to find your $300,000 out of that. So literally, if you manage to pay all your debts off, it means you've taken $300,000 out of that pot, and one or more others ends up losing out. It's like a huge game of musical chairs. The only reason we don't see how it's working is because the game's so huge we can't see up the other end of the field. Now, so the only way the system can function is if more and more money or debt is created into the system. In the past, money actually represented an amount of gold. They called that the gold standard. That meant the government couldn't spend any more money than it had in gold reserves. But after 1971, the dollar became what's known as a fiat currency. That means paper money that isn't backed by anything. So the value of that paper is tied to the actual amount of money in the system. So really, the more money there is, the less it's worth. So now the government are free to spend as much as it wants and pretend that it's not really imposing any new taxes, when really it is. I mean, it's a hidden tax. If the government spends lots more money, the value of the dollar is driven down. That means prices in the shops will rise. So you're essentially being taxed. So really, the system only works if new debt is created to pay off the previous debt. So right now, the government is borrowing trillions and trillions of dollars and putting it into private hands. Now, we've kind of got to... Well, I kind of find it very difficult to visualise $1 trillion. I found something on the internet that actually just opened my eyes to what $1 trillion is. This is a $100 note. It's the largest denomination, and obviously it's one piece of paper. Here is $10,000, made up of these $100 notes, just a small wad. $1 million looks like this. Now we go on to 100 million. This is a standard size pallet. Now we're looking at $1 billion. It's quite a bit, isn't it? Now, here's $1 trillion. Now note that each of these are a double stacked pallet of $100 million each. That's quite a bit. So the government is basically borrowing trillions of dollars, paying it out to private individuals, and at the same time choking off sources of new debt, making it harder by making it harder for consumers to get loans. And that's where typically the debts that the government is running up usually gets paid off. So right now what it appears to be is the Federal Reserve is colluding with all the other central banks to ensure that this is a sudden and catastrophic collapse. Just by looking at documents from the Federal Reserve's own publications, buying US debt to artificially maintain some kind of equilibrium. The Federal Reserve is creating, again, out of thin air, a whole bunch of money and buying in agency bonds, what are known as agency bonds, from foreign central banks. And now the foreign central banks are using this money to buy US Treasury bonds. So creating an illusion, really, that there's an unlimited demand for US government paper. At the same time, it's worsening the problem. Well, what I think is happening is the elite. Now, I'll talk about them some other time. The elite basically are running this world like a game of chess. They're very intelligent people, and they play several moves ahead of what's even possible for us to conceive. And a good chess player will position his pieces strategically first and try and keep his true intentions hidden with distractions. And when everything's in place, they'll just strike suddenly without warning. What I think is going to be happening is the Federal Reserve is going to be sacrificed. That's another good strategy in chess. It will actually sacrifice the Federal Reserve by exposing the massive monetary fraud it's perpetrated, and thereby can trigger the complete collapse of the economy. And it's actually the world economy. The reason for this is to bring on this World Bank as a stepping stone to the one world government.